Good morning, everyone. One more topic from your essay paper we'll take a look at today. And the topic that we'll look at today is topic number 6, which was that you cannot step twice in the same river. But before I look at the topic, one more time. The Vajiram 8 paragraph essay, 8 paragraphs that are divided into 4 segments or 4 types of paragraphs. The introduction, body paragraph number 1, 5 more body paragraphs after that, and finally your conclusion. In the introduction, what do? Provide a preview of your essay, help the examiner realize that your understanding of the topic is correct. In body paragraph number 1, which as I always say is very important for reflective essays especially, provide your interpretation and a correct interpretation of the topic. Third is body paragraph number 2 to 6, 5 different paragraphs. In each of them, give different perspectives, different dimensions upon the essay. And one last paragraph is your conclusion. In the conclusion, what do? Provide a final reinforcement, a final relook at the topic. With this in mind, which we've said many times over, let me look at this topic over here. You cannot step twice in the same river. First, always interpret. In the time that you leave for brainstorming, always interpret the topic correctly. When we say you cannot step twice in the same river, what does this mean? That when a river flows, if you step into it right now and you step into it again, you step out, you step in again after a minute, the river is not the same. Either you have changed or the river would have changed. You cannot step twice in the same river. Now, looking at that interpretation in a slightly better manner, what do we mean by not stepping in the same river twice? That we cannot encounter the same situation a second time. No matter what, the exact same situation will not present itself a second time. Whether it is for the better or whether it is for the worse, the situation in the future will always be different. And hopefully, our purpose, our attempt should be to try and ensure that in the future it is different but for the better. Second, why can we not step in the same river twice? Because either the situation would have changed, the river would have changed, or we would have changed. Which is why it is not possible to face the same situation with the same circumstances, same ability, same capabilities again in the future. Third, what is the learning from this? The learning from this is that we should always try to learn from our past experiences. A situation that you faced in the past, especially one that was not favorable, especially one that did not give you any positive result, understand that situation well, learn from it, and in the future be better prepared to tackle similar situations. If a student giving this exam, let's say in the prelims, out of 200 marks, the cutoff is 108, and a student sitting here got only 93. Learn from your past experiences. What did you do wrong? Did you emphasize too much on one subject? Did you completely ignore another subject? Did you use the wrong sources? Did you not revise? Were you factually weak? Are you conceptually not strong? Learn from the past or learn from your past experiences. Use these to improve yourselves, to strengthen yourself, and ensure that similar problems or similar situations, when they arise in the future, you are better prepared to deal with them. That is why we say that you cannot step in the same river twice. Either the situation would have changed or you would have changed. This is your interpretation, which you write in body paragraph number 1. But I also have an introduction and a conclusion to write. In the introduction and the conclusion, who can I write about? I can, for example, write about a person called Maharana Pratap. Who's Maharana Pratap trying to fight against? He's trying to fight against a person called Akbar. Initially, what does Maharana Pratap do? After losing the fort of Chittor, repeatedly he tries to attack Chittor itself. But Chittor is a large fort. It is an important fort, so it is very well guarded. And despite repeated efforts, repeated attempts, Maharana Pratap is not able to succeed. Then, now, there are many different versions of the story. I myself don't know which story is correct. But someone says that Maharana Pratap met an old lady. She gave him a bowl of porridge to eat. Since he was very hungry, Maharana Pratap immediately started eating from the middle of the bowl. And in the middle, the porridge was very hot, so he burnt his mouth. The old lady told him that you are just like Maharana Pratap. Instead of attacking Chittor, why don't you attack the smaller forts? The smaller forts have lesser soldiers guarding them. They will be easier to defeat. And with every victory that you have over these smaller forts, your strength and your army will grow more powerful. Next time onwards, that is precisely what Maharana Pratap did. And although he was not able to secure, although he was not able to win Chittor back in his lifetime, he is still today remembered in India as an epitome of valor and sacrifice. But with every battle, when he's changing his strategy, what does that prove? Again, that you cannot step in the same river twice. Similarly, we have a person, obviously very famous person, by the name of Valmiki. Valmiki in the past, who's he? His one source of living his life is believing, or his one foundation for life is believing that in life we are supposed to promote our self-interest no matter what the cost, no matter what the consequence. And to do that, what does he do? He, in the first phase of his life, is a robber, is a dacoit. But then Valmiki realizes that such a life, a very shallow life, a very narrow existence of life, cannot be the true purpose of anyone's life. This reformation, this transformation makes him into the learned sage that we remember today, which is Valmiki. The same person cannot step twice in the same river, because over a period of time, your understandings and your development, your evolution will always make you different or the circumstances different. Another person whose example you can take is this lady called Lakshmi Agarwal. Who's Lakshmi Agarwal? She is known the world over, not in India, the world over, for being a person who had the courage to look beyond an acid attack. At a very young, at a very tender age, a man whose advances she spurned threw acid on a face, disfiguring a face to a large extent. What does Lakshmi Agarwal do? Lakshmi Agarwal, now you cannot step twice in the same river. What does she do? She starts fighting for the fact that in India, such circumstances, such attacks, acid attacks, should be significantly reduced. And in the future now, what does she do? In the future, she starts circulating petitions, gathering support, requesting the Supreme Court to order instructions to the governments in India to ensure that in the future, the sales of acid are better regulated. The first time, she was a victim. The second time, she now becomes a savior, emerges as a savior for millions of girls in the country. Another person whose example can be given in the introduction or in the conclusion is Baba Amte. Someone had, in fact, in one of the earlier essays also, I mentioned him and I said, everyone knows about Baba Amte. Someone sent me an email saying, sir, I don't know about Baba Amte. Great people. If you don't know about him, do a little bit of an internet search, you'll find him. But nonetheless, who's he? Baba Amte is a person who, when he is young, is a person who is very rich, is very affluent, is very prosperous, and is living a life of almost utter and complete luxury. Then, one day, Baba Amte goes to a leprosy ashram or a leprosy hospital. In his own words, when he saw a person afflicted by leprosy, he was so scared that he was almost paralyzed with fear. He writes that I did not know how to respond to the situation, I did not know what to do. After this, now when he reflects upon what has happened, in the future, who does Baba Amte become? He becomes a person who is today symbolized or emerges as a symbol of a crusader against leprosy, going to the extent of even injecting himself with the leprosy strain to prove to people that it is not infectious, to prove to people that it is not contagious. Because why? The first time you are extremely scared, second time you are the person fighting it because you cannot step in the same river twice. Finally, another exemplary example is this lady called Sunita Krishnan. I think I mentioned in one of the earlier essays also. Sunita Krishnan at a very young age is gang raped by a group of men only because she is trying to teach children near her house, in her locality. But what does she emerge as? She emerges as a person who is not going to be cowed down by these kind of attacks. She founds an NGO called Prajwala. And Prajwala today has rescued thousands of women from intergenerational poverty. Women and their children from intergenerational poverty and prostitution. Why? Because the same person will not step into the same river twice. Either you will change or the circumstances will change for the better or for the worse. Now here someone or the other usually asks me that, sir, all these examples that you're talking about are positive, are good. Can we not use negative examples? You can. But try to understand, If we use negative examples, that does not set a very good tone. In this paper, in the ethics paper also, what are you rewarded for? You are rewarded for your optimism. You are rewarded for your positive thinking. Don't tell us about the problems. Everyone knows we have a lot of problems already. Try to give us some hope. Give us a ray of hope. Give us some optimism that these problems can be overcome and people genuinely have overcome them in the past. Now, that's your introduction and conclusion. But there are another 5 paragraphs that we need to write. In each of the paragraphs, what are we saying? That the same person does not enter that a person does not enter the same river twice. That any situation that you're facing, either the situation would have changed or you would have changed. For example, first situation that we look at is the desire among many people, a desire for revenge, a desire for retribution. But when you seek revenge, when you seek retribution, remember what Gandhi had said, that an eye for an eye will make the world blind. In simple words, what is the realization? The loss that is caused by revenge, not only to others, but maybe even to you. And here, what should this lead to? The willingness to forgive. And whose example can you quote here? Draupadi and Ashwathama. When the battle of Mahabharata starts, in fact, even before that, what does Draupadi want? Draupadi wants revenge. She is the same woman who will say to Bhim that you have to kill Dushasan and you have to bring me his blood. But at the end of the war, Ashwathama is a person who kills 5 of Draupadi's sons. Arjun captures Ashwathama, brings him in front of Draupadi, asks him, do you want me to kill Ashwathama for you? And Draupadi says no. What is the reason? She says, having lost 5 sons, I understand the pain that a mother would have to go through. And I don't want Ashwathama's mother to have to suffer the same pain. Proving that you cannot enter the same river twice. Either the river would have changed or you would have transformed. Similarly, what is a problem with people? Many people conform with prevalent norms. This is what students say inside the class, that sir, this is how society is. These are the problems we are facing. What can we do? You are supposed to try and change them. Now, when people conform with prevailing norms, with prevalent norms, what is the realization that will come? The realization that the responsibility for change does not lie with others. It first lies with us. When this realization comes now, the next time you face a similar situation, you will be more determined to fight for a positive change, to fight for an improvement. And here we give the example of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, I don't know when exactly the transformation came, but he was born at a time in India when we had that very evil practice of sati, inhuman practice of sati. But Raja Ram Mohan Roy conforms with those norms for some time. Then he sees his own sister-in-law being forced to commit sati. There he realizes that the responsibility for change does not lie with others, it lies first with us. And now in the future, whenever he sees a woman being compelled to perform sati, to commit sati, he is more determined to gather people in his support and to fight for a positive societal change. Because you cannot enter the same river twice. Another example, and like I said, this man must be outstanding. No matter what topic you take, his name always serves as an ideal example, and that's Oscar Schindler. Now, how do we use his example? Many people are indifferent, insensitive, apathetic towards the towards the suffering of others. They have a self-serving nature where they largely focus on trying to fulfill their personal interest rather than considering their responsibilities towards others. One such person is Oscar Schindler at the beginning of the Second World War. At the beginning of the Second World War, he's a rich businessman, he's a rich industrialist, and all that he's bothered about is that he can earn more money and live a life of luxury. But what is the realization? As with many of us also, when we see firsthand the suffering of others, in this case, the suffering inflicted upon the Jews by the Nazis. Now what happens? In the future, he develops, and many of us will also develop, the ability to empathize, the genuine desire to help others. And that again is why we say that any person cannot enter the same river twice. Either the situation would have changed or you would have transformed. Another problem with a lot of people is a narrow worldview. The example of Valmiki that we were looking at earlier. In this case, what is important to realize? that when you have a narrow worldview, you must understand the futility of your current way of life. If I wanted to relate this with you people, when students come to prepare for the civil services exam, most of them, they're intelligent, they're well qualified, they represent some of India's best education institutions, but their perspectives towards the world are usually not very broad, are usually quite narrow. Then they prepare for this exam, and honestly about this exam, they say that if you prepare for the civil services exam just once, but carefully and sincerely, your worldview will never be the same again. This exam and the syllabus and the way it's conducted opens your worldview in such a manner that you'll never see the world around you ever again in a similar manner. Now, when you understand the futility of your current way of life, this develops a holistic understanding, and that is what Valmiki realized. When he realized that just by killing people, that could not be the larger purpose for which he was created. And today, of course, he is remembered as the world famous author of the Ramayana, the story of virtue over vice. One final point, if we want to add, one more paragraph. A lot of people suffer from what we call the omission bias. What is the omission bias? The belief that just because I am not doing something wrong, I am doing the right thing. What does this mean? That you must understand that when we say that there's a person who is not doing the right thing, it does not mean that he is doing the wrong thing. The opposite of moral is not necessarily immoral. It could also be a person who is amoral. Now here, what do we have to realize? That not taking a decision can also be a very powerful decision by itself. When you realize that there are circumstances where not acting, inaction on your part, can have disastrous consequences, this now should help you assume a leadership role, a positive role, a proactive role in the future. And that is the example of Gandhi. Now, what is the first ever that he reaches? That is when he completes his education and wants to become a lawyer. A British educated lawyer working in a largely British dominated system. That is what Gandhi wants to become. But when Gandhi is traveling in South Africa and when he is thrown off a train, Gandhi realizes that for India and for Indians to live well, independence is absolutely essential. The next time onwards, he does not do the same. He assumes a leadership role, comes back to India and tries to channelize Indian efforts, the efforts of many people towards achieving that objective. Emphasizing again that a person cannot step into the same river twice. This is one more topic from your paper. Another topic we'll take up now in the next video. Thank you very much.